one penetrated the Arizona's deck near the number 2 turret, causing a large explosion that destroyed the forward half of the ship, which burned for 2 days. It is thought that most of the Arizona's crew died instantly during the explosion. More than 1,100 sailors and Marines were lost with the ship. Along with most of his shipmates, Seaman Second Class Rainer Aguirre's remains were never recovered, nor were the talents and dreams of this 23-year-old Californian fulfilled. There lies within the ship's wreckage, 40 feet below the solemn USS Arizona Memorial, the final resting place for him and over 900 of his shipmates. One interesting side note. In the ceremony at sunset this very evening, the ashes of Fire Control Chief Bruner will be interred in one of the Arizona's turrets. The second to the last man to escape the burning wreckage, he passed away this September at the age of 98. He will be the 44th and last survivor of the Arizona to be reunited with his shipmates, as the remaining 3 Arizona survivors have chosen to be laid to rest with their families. Chief Bruner said he saw it as a way to join old friends who never made it off the warship. Please pray for Chief Bruner and his family this evening as he's laid to final rest in the Arizona. Frank Andrade's book about his Uncle Nero captures how seized family members are about the loss of their loved one. Memories and stories have been passed down to the next generation, and there is a void in heart and mind within the entire family. The organization I represent, the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, DPAA, hosts 9 family meetings each year throughout the country to provide these family members individual updates of their loved one's case and the overall mission itself. We have conducted these update programs since 1995, reaching nearly 23,000 family members of the missing. In fact, it was at a family member meeting in Virginia in August 2018 that I met Norco Mayor Pro Tem Kevin Bash. His mother's cousin, Second Lieutenant Bunky Guion, is an MIA from the Korean War. A Marine aviator, Lieutenant Guion, was shot down over North Korea in October 1952, and his remains have never been recovered due to the hostilities and no cooperation from the North Koreans. Kevin, thank you for inviting me to speak at this commemoration event. And we will bring your mother's cousin home. The second Pearl Harbor sailor I would like to tell you about is boatsman Nate Ray Emery from Worthington, Indiana. As a 20-year-old, Ray was assigned to the USS Honolulu, a light cruiser. At 7:55 a.m. that morning, he was sitting in his bunk reading the paper when the general quarters alarm sounded. Without waiting for permission or orders, he responded to the attack by rushing to one of the ship's 50 caliber machine guns, helping break into a lockbox of ammunition and opening fire on everything he saw from the attacking enemy planes. Ray later participated in engagements in the Aleutians and Solomons and in 7 invasions across the Pacific, from Tarawa to Leyte Gulf. After leaving the Navy in 1946, Chief Emery got his degree and worked as a mechanical engineer in construction until he retired. After returning to Hawaii in the mid-1980s, he was visiting the National Cemetery of the Pacific to pay his respects to his former colleagues. He noticed a significant number of the flat granite markers only had written on it December 7, 1941, and the word unknown. Some had a ship's name, others just said Pearl Harbor. Of the 2,403 who paid the supreme sacrifice that day, about 25% could not be identified and were buried as unknowns. The high rate of unidentified dead was due to the attack being so swift and brutal. But because it was peacetime, servicemen weren't recovered to wear their dog tag identifications. For the next 2 decades, Chief Emery set about to correct this tragic situation. Described as tenacious, brusque, even intimidating, he had the right attributes to conduct laborious research to try and figure out the identities of Pearl Harbor unknowns buried in those unnamed graves. Without training and funding, he was undeterred, comparing stacks of servicemen's medical records to find a match among the stacks of their burial records. And after creating hundreds of charts from his research, Chief Emery presented a compelling case in 2003 to DPA to disinter one such unknown grave, a single casket associated with the USS Oklahoma. Subsequent anthropological and mitochondrial DNA evidence showed those remains to be highly commingled. In fact, there were at least 95 individuals in that one single casket.
Wow.
Fortunately, there were 5 craniums from which scientists were able to make identifications from dental analyses. 5 sailors are now named. 5 families found answers 62 years later. All because a tough-as-nails sailor passionately compiled accurate documentation of what had happened at Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, so as to properly account for his shipmates who were killed that day, shipmates he never knew. 97-year-old Chief Boatswain Ray Emery unfortunately passed away in August of 2018. Having not sought permission when he manned those machine guns on December 7th, it was fitting that he didn't seek permission when he fought against Navy tradition that a Honolulu cemetery was to be the final resting place of those unknowns. As the chief so brusquely put it, these guys got killed in battle for their country, and they should be so recognized, period. In 2003, only 5 sailors could be identified because we lacked the DNA family reference samples of the others. But it was because of Chief Emery's diligence and tenacity that the Navy began the in-depth genealogical research to find appropriate family members of the 388 unknowns from the USS Oklahoma. Once accumulated, we then petitioned various agencies to disinter all the unknown remains with the 3 ships sunk at Pearl Harbor that morning: the Oklahoma, the USS West Virginia, and the USS California. In fact, the USS Oklahoma project is the first, largest, and most successful of these. From Chief Emery's persistence on that first set of exhumed unknowns, in 2015, DPA disinterred 60 other caskets containing the commingled remains of 388 sailors and Marines who perished on the ship. After the last casket was exhumed, there were approximately 13,000 skeletal elements. Using extensive anthropological, dental, and DNA analysis, Department of Defense scientists have identified 242 of the 388 unknown sailors and Marines, returning each of them with honor to their families. The project to identify the 35 unknowns for the USS West Virginia began in mid-2017. To date, 8 of those have been identified. And the USS California project is the most recent, beginning in 2018. And although none have yet to be identified, all 25 are exhumed and undergoing forensic analyses. My third and final story is actually about 2 Pearl Harbor sailors: Machinist Mate Second Class Leo and Fireman First Class Rudolph Blitz, twin brothers from Lincoln, Nebraska. As teenagers, the twins together decided to join the Navy on a kiddie cruise, a short enlistment that starts before the sailor's 18th birthday and ends before they turn 21. They were the 3rd and 4th youngest among a family of 15 children. Leo and Rudolph were assigned to the USS Oklahoma and had been at Pearl Harbor almost a year before December 7th. They were 4 months away from their discharge and their 21st birthday. Sadly, their parents, Henry and Marie, received a telegram notification about their sons' deaths on Christmas Eve. Sandy Cox, a niece born 5 years after Pearl Harbor, remarked, It's really hard to use the term uncles because they were always the boys. That's how they were referred to in the stories we were told. Rudolph the fireman was above deck when the torpedo bombs first hit the Oklahoma. Machinist mate Leo was below deck working on one of the ship's generators. One of their surviving shipmates recalled Rudolph saying, "I'm going down to get my brother." It was never seen again. Along with their 386 of their shipmates, they were unidentifiable when the Oklahoma was righted in 1943, and the bodies recovered off the ship. 2 subsequent attempts to identify those remains were not successful, and in the end, all 388 sailors and Marines were then commingled and buried as unknowns in a Honolulu cemetery. With a DNA sample on hand from their 93-year-old sister Betty, her twin brothers were identified this past June and were laid to rest on August 10th in their family cemetery in Lincoln, Nebraska, alongside their parents and most of their siblings. Over 100 family members attended their full military honors burial. It was Betty's oldest grandson, Ed McLaughlin, who said, "All my life growing up, my grandmother would talk about her brothers, Leo and Rudolph. She'd tell us all stories about them, describing them as ornery tricksters." For my family to know we finally have them home and they can finally rest, that is simply God-given miracle. Machinist mate second class Leo and fireman first class Rudolph Blitz came into the world together. They enlisted together at 17, and they made the supreme sacrifice together at the age of 20. Together until the end. It's interesting to note that the twins' names are carved into the marble tablets of the missing at the National Cemetery of the Pacific. Because they are now identified and now at home, each has a bronze rosette placed next to their name. As DPA's director, I have the honor to lead more than 600 military and civilian personnel, all very talented, all uber passionate, and so dedicated about this noble mission of pursuing the fullest possible accounting of Americans missing from past conflicts. The mission is global in scope, with investigations marked by painstaking research and analysis, challenging recoveries in inhospitable environments, and a remarkable scientific enterprise. Ladies and gentlemen, the number of missing Americans from World War II, the Korean War, Cold War, and Persian Gulf Wars is over 81,000. More than 72,000 of which gave the ultimate sacrifice in World War II. DPA successfully operates in 46 nations, all of whom recognizes this as a humanitarian endeavor. And while the number of missing is daunting, there's so much more than just figures. Just as with the Blitz twins, each has a unique story with memories that transcend decades of time and generations. For their Gold Star families, the grieving loss of their loved one is exacerbated by the uncertainty associated with their loss. DPA also works with a broad range of partners to gather and process information and evidence. In addition to the partner countries in which we operate, we partner with the U.S. Combatant Commands, the Military Service Casualty Offices, the Armed Forces DNA Identification Laboratory, and the Department of Defense, Veteran Affairs, and the American Battle Monuments Commission. We also have 57 partnerships with non-governmental organizations, universities, who bring vital capacity and capability to our Herculean efforts. This last fiscal year, DPA accounted for 218 Americans, milestone for the agency. That means 218 families now have answers after decades of uncertainty. The fact that the United States of America vigorously pursues this noble mission defines us as a nation. It is appropriately a sacred obligation and a moral imperative to research, search for, recover, and identify those missing in an unknown piece of earth and return them home to American soil. Our nation is fulfilling a promise made to those who we sent off to combat and who never returned, as well as to their families. This national commitment also serves as a marker to our veterans whose comrades are missing, and to also those in uniform today, that this nation will never leave its warriors behind. In 1920, after the end of World War I, then Vice Presidential nominee Calvin Coolidge said this: "The nation that forgets its defenders will itself soon be forgotten." In attending today's commemoration, thank you to each of you for not forgetting our defenders. Rainer Aguirre, Rain Emery, Leo and Randolph Blitz were all defenders, whose stories are woven into the tapestry of American history, because America would not be what it is today without their willingness to serve. We owe them our very way of life and our freedom to live, work, and play as we choose. America's defenders share a common bond: their unwavering belief in the cause for freedom, a belief so strong that they have been willing to give their lives in its defense. May God bless all of our defenders, especially those who sacrificed it all on this day 78 years ago. May he shed his grace on our missing and their families, and as always, may he bless our great nation.
General, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think I've used the term family today about 12 to 15 times, and we really are. And for those of us who are getting people back home who care about us is most important. So if you're the mom, the dad, the cousin, the sister, brother, if you're a relative of a veteran, thank you very, very much for your support, because quite frankly, without you guys, there's a lot of people just would not be motivated to do the job. You young fellows who are going to join the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the military later on, God bless you. For the college. To be really honest with you fellas and ladies, Ensign Button is a pretty sharp guy. Pay attention to him. He knows what he's talking about. He really does. Okay, we went. And we left. And we came home. And what did we say to each other? What did we say to each other when everybody left? You know, we're going to get together again. I think we are. 80s?
So won't you please say hello?
Captain of the Guard.
Color guard, stand.
Please rise.
Three colors. Color guard, forward, march.
Please remain standing for the moment. Pastor Bruner.
Wow, what a beautiful, beautiful morning together. Anybody else feeling as emotional as I am? Thank you. This was wonderful. The benediction is more than just the prayer that stamps the end of an occasion. It is a blessing that sends you. So please, you're already standing. Pray. Receive this benediction. Pray with me. Dear Lord, we thank you again for this moment to pause and remember our past, our heroes. Help us to draw courage from the example of these brave Americans that we honor. As we go from here, may we be ever vigilant and courageous. Cause us to stand strong for what is right, for this land that we love. Give us commitment and strength to make our world a better place and to encourage and lift up those around us. And now from Romans 15:13, now may God, the inspiration of and fountain of hope, fill you, overflowing with uncontainable joy and perfect peace as you trust in Him. And may the power of the Holy Spirit continually surround your life with His superabundance until you radiate with hope. God bless you, and God bless America. Amen.
Please sit down if you would for just a second. I hope everyone does get a brochure and read
Or it must be open. He told me I had to delete the tape from earlier because I had pictures of some of the military installations. Had some great shots too. Look at all the birds out there. Wow, look at all the water. It's all white. Must be pooping in the water. But there's a boathouse over there. And they would have races around here. It was amazing back in the 20s. Amazing place. There's Dad. Holding court.
Separate broads, wearing separate flags. French? Well, our language came from French and German. Yes, that would go.
Oops.
Yeah, that's the question, yeah.
Oh, there was a Korean guy.
It just depends, he has to have an honorable discharge.
There was a Korean guy. Japan invaded Korea. They inducted him into the Korean, Japanese army. They fought the Russians on the border. The Russians captured him. He became a Russian soldier. And on the Eastern Front, the Germans captured him. He became a German. Then the Americans captured him. I want to know if he's a veteran of all the places.
He's a veteran of all of them, absolutely is. You know, if his ass was in the grass, he was there. I don't care what anybody says.
He's 6'10".
Turboy.
You're talking about Tiger Woods. Yeah. He was a Hungarian German concentration camp, got out, became American, and then went to Korea and was captured. And got his Congressional Medal of Honor for being able to go in and out of the base where he was captured because he knew how to do it as a kid. So he was going in and out and getting medical supplies and stuff and bringing back to the guys that really needed it. So,
Crawl into the.
that's Admiral Isaac Kidd stuff. He died at Pearl. Was one of the 15 Congressional Medal of Honor recipients from there.
Where was this at?
That was on the battleship Arizona.
That was on
originally.
Arizona, huh?
Yes.
When did they recover this?
Well, the guy that recovered it right after Pearl Harbor, right after the attack. When the ship stopped burning, the work crews came on board.
Wow.
And the enlisted man that was responsible for going up into the admiral's area pulled a bunch of this stuff out in a sea bag and took it to his chief and said, "What do I do with it?" Because, well, anything that's marked that's personal item, put it in a box so we can send it to the admiral's wife. Anything else, get the hell rid of it. We're getting ready to fight a damn war. We don't have time for this bullshit.
So this is what they
So
got
he
rid of.
took it and stuck it in a sea bag and sent it home.
What a man! What a man! Little did he know.
And then
Little
I
did
ended
he
up with it
know.
because he's got to see the stars on
Oh,
it.
you ended up with it.
I ended up. That's
How'd you find it?
Yeah, I got. My mom dated the man after the war who had it, and they stayed in contact all the years for many years later. And when he found out, when he found out that she had a son that cared about naval history and such, he sent it down to me one year as a Christmas gift. He said, "Here." He says, "I don't want it." He says, "My kids don't give a shit. It's sitting in the garage."
God,
He
I
said,
get
"So why
goosebumps
don't
just
you
thinking
go
of
ahead and
this.
take it?" This is his flag.
Just to
This is
think
his
of it.
flag.
That's his flag
And
too.
this is his
All off the Arizona.
all off the Arizona.
My God.
Yeah, after the attack.
I mean,
Yeah.
how
Nobody-
did they get
nobody
his
cared.
whites?
Oh, those aren't his.
Those aren't
the
his
whites.
whites?
Aren't his. Just the
Okay.
stuff that's on there.
Okay.
Just the stuff.
Well,
But even then,
you're
that's-
pretty. I mean, I'm in military history, and something like that is
I have
like
been for over 50 years.
it's like getting Hitler stuff, you know.
Well,
with HR,
I think it's better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, a lot better.
I think it's better than having anything for me. This is all the stuff they wore. This is all the things that
Wow.
they had. If you ever see a service ribbon with this single battle star on it, that means you served at Pearl Harbor. That you were at Pearl when the attack happened. Because this didn't exist yet. That's the Asiatic Pacific ribbon that you got after the war started. But before the war started, they had a service ribbon that you were already being issued, and this was the battle star that you got if you were in the Atlantic Fleet and you weren't in the Pacific Fleet, you got an A that went on there.